Sims Walker, knocked down.
Oh my God! Davis is going running all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
In trouble. He's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again, goes to the 40, gets away again.
Jackson takes it himself. Look at him dart back and forth. Oh! He broke his ankles.
I have never seen this before in my life.
Still looking. Firing. Near corner. It's caught!
Denver! Unbelievable!
And welcome to the fourth down fiasco!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fourth Down Fiasco, your go-to podcast for all things football, brought to you by BetStamp. Yes, BetStamp is a collection of all the biggest name sports bookies across the nation. So that's BetMGM, that's Bet365, that's Caesars, FanDuel, all of those things. And no Danny on the pod today to tell us what particular specials they have going on, but you should go check them out. You can go to signupexpert.com/fiasco and place a bet through that. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, while you're at it, go ahead and rate this podcast 5 stars on Spotify or Apple, whichever it is that you are listening to us on, and comment where you're listening to us from. We love to hear from our listeners any chance we get to. But with me today is one of the rising stars of the podcasting industry, the Justin Fields feline fanatic. I don't know how those words all came together, but they did.
Oh, yeah.
Tanner Vinsky.
Yeah.
How's it going, my guy?
We're doing good. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there. No Danny Weber today. He is out sick. Lucky guy. I wish that were me. But yes, we are going to recap week 4 of the NFL, as well as give you our pick'ems, and also, of course, do our Fiasco Award of the week. So, with that, Tanner, would you like to give us a quick rundown of the scores from week 4?
Yeah, let's run it. So we started Thursday night with Dallas and the New York Giants. Pretty close game, 20-15, but Dallas was able to pull it off in the end because the game came down to Danny Dimes' arms. So you never want to be in that position.
No.
Atlanta beat New Orleans 26-24 on a last-second field goal by Younghoe Koo. Chicago hangs on against LA 24-8. Well, LA Rams 24-18. We then had Minnesota versus Green Bay, who won 31-29. The Colts shock the Steelers 27-24. Steelers dig themselves out of a 17-0 deficit. Broncos even more so shock the New York Jets 10-9 in probably the worst game of football that's ever been seen. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers blow out the fraudulent Philadelphia Eagles 33-16.
Fraudulent. Yes.
Cincinnati finally gets their first win against the season, their first win of the season against the Carolina Panthers 34-24. Houston comes back and beats Jacksonville 24-20. I think Jacksonville was leading that game. I'd have to check again, but it was regardless pretty close for how bad Jacksonville has been this year. The Commanders blow out the Arizona Cardinals 42-14. The San Francisco 49ers follow suit and blow out the New England Patriots 30-13. And probably the first shit bowl of the entire season, the Las Vegas Raiders beat the Cleveland Browns 20-16.
First.
The Kansas City Chiefs beat the Los Angeles Chargers 17-10. The Baltimore Ravens beat the Buffalo Bills 35-10, and another blowout game. A lot of blowouts this week. Mm-hmm. Following up with actually another blow-up, the Tennessee Titans destroy the Miami Dolphins 31-12. And I think we all saw that one coming with the Tua-less Dolphins. Mm-hmm. And then we finally wrapped up the Monday night games with Detroit versus Seattle, who Detroit wins 42-29 in a game where the score looks way worse than the game actually was.
Yeah, definitely. No, yeah, it was weird to see, especially on the latter half of the schedule for this week, how many blowouts there were. Just a weird week of football in general. Honestly, I feel like it's been a weird season, if we're being honest about it.
Oh, it's been a super weird season. I feel like nothing. I mean, the Vikings are 4-0.
Yeah, the Vikings are 4-0 with Sam Darnold. Your Pittsburgh Steelers, granted, they lost this week, but are now, 3-1 with Justin Fields at quarterback. It's been a weird season.
Yes.
So, okay, with the slate of games, which one are you wanting to highlight first?
It's difficult because I almost want to highlight pretty much every game I at least watched, because this was a really interesting week just with the way things went down. I'll start with my Steelers, though, because I don't want to look like a coward and not talk about the Steelers when they lose.
Fair enough.
This was the most bizarre game I've watched as a fan, because I actually felt okay after we lost. I didn't have like a mental breakdown or want to cry or anything like that. The Steelers, I mean, we would have never seen an offense be able to crawl themselves out of a 17-0 deficit like this team did. And the fact that there was an opportunity late in the game just to go down the field and score, that was crazy. I can't believe how well Justin Fields has developed in Pittsburgh. He had a lot of stupid moments during the game. He took a lot of unnecessary sacks. George Pickens, just completely fumbled a ball out of bounds for no reason when he could have just stepped out of bounds. Or sorry, he didn't fumble the ball out of bounds. He fumbled the ball to the other team when he could have just stepped out of bounds. And then the late 15-yard sack Justin Fields took. There was a couple of self-inflicted wounds that the Steelers had that if you just, George Pickens steps out of bounds, Justin Fields throws the ball away, he doesn't take some of those sacks that he did. I mean, the Steelers walk away with this game. And I don't want to put too much blame on the offense because, Justin Fields, even though he had a couple of stupid mistakes, I think that's what you're expecting to get out of Justin Fields. You're expecting to get some really high highs and some really low lows. And I think if you're telling yourself as a fan of somebody who's watching Justin Fields as your quarterback that, he's going to make stupid plays, but he's also going to hit some really great balls downfield and make some really good runs, I think you take that. He's not necessarily the most reckless, but he's just going to have some moments where he doesn't have the best decision making. So I don't want to put the blame of this game on the offense because this was the first game where the Steelers defense didn't look that good. And I think that's more of why the Steelers team lost. Because I think if this Steelers team had the defense that it was playing in the first 3 weeks, they win this game easily. The fact that they gave up 27 points is super uncharacteristic of a Steelers defense in the last couple of years. So I'm not too worried about it. I feel like they're going to bounce back just because of how talented this defense is. But that's really what I think made or break this game was just, giving long, sustained drives. And it might be crazy to say, but I don't know if that happens with Anthony Richardson. Just having Joe Flacco come into this game and just how well he can read the defense, I think is really what made the difference for Indianapolis. And I don't think it's going to cause a QB controversy if Anthony Richardson is healthy. At least it shouldn't. What you get in Joe Flacco, the ceiling is immense with Anthony Richardson, so you're going to want to keep playing him.
Yeah, and developing him because, you don't have a future with Flacco. Flacco is, 30, 41, something like that?
Somewhere between 39 and 42.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Here, I'll look it up real quick. Flacco age. He's 39. Okay, I thought he was already in his 40s. But yeah, he'll be turning 40 this year, though. And and I think that's something that you should be encouraged by with Pittsburgh. Justin Fields did have the one fumble that he lost, but we're still looking at a day where he went 22 of 34 for 312 and three total touchdowns. He had almost 400 total yards and, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Still made things work. Still lots of, in comparison to where Justin Fields was last year with Chicago.
Last year is a massive step forward.
It is night and day difference. He's actually making good reads. He's making good decisions. He still is struggling, and this is going to happen with any type of younger quarterback. Still struggling, yes, with getting sacked at inopportune times and not knowing when to throw the ball away, when to escape the pocket, and things like that. But overall, even with this loss, y'all should feel incredibly encouraged because your defense on most days isn't going to give up 27, especially not 27 to the Colts, maybe 27 to one of the higher-powered offenses, or something like that. But, man, I'm not looking forward to having to play y'all when we do.
Next week should be really interesting because it's funny. I still think the Dallas roster is better, and I feel like Dallas should beat Pittsburgh next year. But Pittsburgh is just playing a lot better than Dallas has been playing this year.
It's because y'all have a better coach. Y'all's coach is light years ahead of our coach, and that's what's so frustrating. Is because on paper, sure, we're the better roster on paper, but I don't feel good going into the game because the difference in
Mike
coaching.
McCarthy.
Yeah. I've never really been much of a McCarthy truther. He is what he is. Mike Tomlin's a different animal, If you gave Mike Tomlin half the rosters in this league, he could probably win a Super Bowl.
Oh, easily. That's the thing, is I've never been a Mike Tomlin detractor. This team would be a cesspool without Mike Tomlin. Mm-hmm. If you didn't have Mike Tomlin tenured over the last 10 years, I mean, maybe some of the Killer Bees teams have, a little bit better construction, but the post-Killer Bees teams, those teams go 4 or 5 wins at most without Mike Tomlin under helm. So I don't understand how somebody can be a Mike Tomlin detractor. I know they say 9-8 merchant, all those things. And it's okay, man,
you see what he's working with?
Exactly. I don't get it. So I just think it's just stupid. If anybody doesn't, if I think you ask the majority of the GMs in the league, you trade out your current head coach for Mike Tomlin, I think most of them take it in a heartbeat. I think Mike Tomlin is a top 5 coach in this league and has been for the last 10 years.
100%. Yeah. I think the only teams that would say no would probably be
the Chiefs.
Obviously the Chiefs. Yeah. Maybe the Rams with Sean McVay.
49ers with Shanahan.
Yeah. Shanahan, which honestly they would benefit from having Tomlin. I think that's more than being stubborn, but I'll let them have it. I can't really think of anybody else who you wouldn't just jump off a cliff for, basically, to replace your coach with Mike Tomlin. Dan Campbell. I think what he's established in that locker room, culture wise, even as great as Mike Tomlin is just hard to recreate.
It's a very different type of culture than Mike Tomlin brings to a locker room. So I think moving the Dan Campbell team to a Mike Tomlin team, I think it would be kind of culture shock for a lot of those players. Yeah.
But I think other than those 4, I think pretty much every other team in the league, is bring them in.
See you later.
Yeah.
I have one more thing with the Colts before we move on. It is concerning with Anthony Richardson that he's only played 8 games and he's only finished 8 of those games. He's gone down in injury in 4 of the 8 games he's played as a starter.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's very concerning for his long-term health and how available he's going to be. I think that's why it was really smart that the Colts went and got Joe Flacco as a backup because, Joe Flacco's consistent. He's been pretty much an Iron Man his whole career. He's probably not going to go down with injury, and he elevates an offense pretty well. Mm-hmm. It's the difference between, the Dolphins, who went in this season knowing that Tua has a concussion history and could go out, and they go in with freaking Skylar Thompson as their backup. Just complete roster mismanagement. Yeah. So I'm worried about the Colts in the future because I really don't know if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy. He's finishing only 4 of his 8 games of his career. And the fact that he's in year 2 and has only played 8 games is also a big red flag. So I don't know what the future is going to look like for them. I hope Anthony Richardson can stay healthy and can keep performing. But there's no reason for me to believe that he can at this point, just with how injured he's been.
Fair enough. Yeah. And, Indy is a fan base that they need some good football. They are a really good fan base as far as how they stick behind their team. And so, you wish for the best for Anthony Richardson and, the little bit of play that I have seen from him. I mean, he has moments where you're just like, dude, this guy could be a game wrecker for
No, his ceiling is, he might have the highest ceiling of any quarterback in the league.
Yeah. But if that's true, which I'll take your word for it about, only playing 8 games in the past 2 years and only finishing 4 of them, that's not a good look. So, But since you were brave enough to talk about Pittsburgh, I mean, even though technically the Cowboys won in the 20-15 shit fest, in my opinion, it's a moral loss. So I'll mention it real quick. Just, yeah, Thursday night football, I get that it's a shorter week, so, you're going to have sloppier play. That's normally what happens in these Thursday night games. But it was, at times, very hard to watch. Offensively, I will highlight Dak. Dak was, making some hella pinpoint throws throughout the game, especially in that first half. CD in the first half looked dominant, looked like whatever was going on the week before, he had kind of gotten over it. And the offense was humming, with the exception of the first drive. They were humming that first half, but then everything kind of fell off of a cliff, and mainly because of the penalties. And my philosophy on penalties is, and I get that this isn't what the refs do, obviously, but if both teams are struggling to play, any given down without there being 1,001 penalties on each play, but it's even that way, then you need to start letting them slide, because it was getting so ridiculous that, there was a penalty with 4 seconds left in the half on a kickoff, punt, whatever it was, for something that it was like, dude, they let the ball go out of the end zone. Just play on, please. And, we were getting penalized. The Giants were getting penalized. And, I was on Twitter, even seeing Giants reactions of just oh my God, let them play. You don't have to throw a flag literally every play. Just, yes, there is holding. There is holding by our offensive line, their offensive line. But because we both suck so bad, just let them play. And the refs were really just making it more about them than they were about the game. But I will say defense worries me because, they only let 15 points on the board. It was all field goals, and there were 5 well-sustained drives by the New York Giants that either got derailed by bullshit penalties or got derailed because, I think about the last drive with Danny Dimes. Yes, you feel good with it being, his arm has to beat you to win a game. But also there was a play, I want to say 2 plays before the game ended, before we got them on 4th down, where, nice little crossing route, 7-yard gain, at least at the point where the receiver catches the ball, and then he just dropped it. He just didn't secure it. And he would have had, based on where his crossing route was, he had another 6-7 yards that he could have ran, would have gotten out of bounds. And we just got very lucky. Defense got bailed out several times, whether if it was a really bad Daniel Jones pass, whether if it was a penalty, whether if it was a drop ball by a receiver. And so I do not feel good about this defense whatsoever after this game. We are exactly who we were last week. We were just fortunate enough that we played the New York Giants.
Well, that's the thing is, Malik Neighbors was torching y'all. And even Wan'Dale Robinson was having a great game despite some of the really shitty drops he had in this game. Malik Neighbors had 12 receptions and Wan'Dale Robinson had 11. That's 23 catches between those two guys. That's a lot for a defense to give up.
Yeah.
And to your point about the refs, at some point, I know that teams are committing penalties, but the refs just have to swallow their whistles. If that's the type of game that's going to be being played where it's just super undisciplined and things are going, I know it's a player safety issue. I know all those things. But it makes unwatchable football if you're calling a penalty on everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything is getting called a penalty. And it's just so hard to sit there through the entire game and be like, okay, there's, there's a first down. Oh, let me hold my breath. Maybe there's going to be a penalty flag that comes out, right? Yeah. That was how every drive felt. And I get it. I know that they're hitting hard. I know that they're holding. I know that they're doing stupid shit, and they deserve the penalties they're getting. But just swallow the whistles, let them play, and let the game keep going. And then when it becomes a safety issue, then step in and actually start officiating the game.
If there's late hits on a quarterback or something like that, sure, that's when you throw the flag. But the amount of holding calls, where I was looking at it and I was like, by definition, sure, but the problem was we started, and they did this too. We started holding, and they started holding very early in the game, and so then the rest were like, okay, well, now you're under a microscope, and now every time that you even slightly tug on a jersey, we're going to pull a flag.
We're throwing that flag, yeah.
Because even in the second half, there were multiple penalties, even a couple on a couple of Giants plays where, I was thankful that they got penalized, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, that shouldn't have been a flag.
Yeah, it was also just a badly officiated game, which sucked. That play with the face mask call, it's like, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. They called the Giants player on a face mask when the Dallas player was the one that face masked, and then they didn't reverse it. And it's like, what's the point of having New York review penalties if they're just going to stay anyways? What's the point? It just looks like it's a waste of money. And I think they're saying it as in like, oh, we have somebody else who's watching the game who's going to review the penalties and step in case we miss something, to give ourselves accountability. But instead, that guy's just, I don't know, apparently he's not even watching the game. He's watching something else going on. Because how do you, as the guy who's in New York watching the game to make sure penalties are called correctly, see the other team commit the face mask, and for the team who suffered from the face mask to get called for the face mask and not step in and be like, hey, guys, you obviously fucked up here. Like, you need to go back and recall that penalty because the Giants player was the one that got face masked. Yeah. I don't get it. Like, if you're not going to do that, then don't even have them there. It's so stupid. Yeah. And that was a big swing. Because wasn't that on a touchdown that they called that back? Yeah. That's a huge swing of points, and that changed the momentum of the game. Oh yeah, right off the grip. But we're talking a little too much about my trash ass team. I want to highlight some good football here. So. I think the next game that I would like to highlight, since I think both of us we have enough time to both highlight one more since Danny's not with us. I want to highlight the Baltimore Ravens against the Buffalo Bills, just because, we definitely saw it some against Dallas for sure, because they whooped our ass, but we are seeing that offense click, and it is frightening. It is terrifying to see. Derrick Henry rushing for, technically not 200 yards, 199, but Derrick Henry rushing for 200 yards on 24 carries, just nasty work. And Lamar having 2 touchdowns through the air and 1 on the ground. We are finally seeing what we all thought that this Baltimore offense was going to look like whenever they acquired Derrick Henry. That's why I never hit the panic button on Baltimore. I was always in the back of my head, I always knew that, all right, this is a run-first team. They have Derrick Henry. They have Lamar Jackson, which is probably the best, backfield that an NFL team has ever rostered. I don't think at
least in recent times.
You can make an argument for Peyton and Edgerrin James. You can make an argument for Kurt Warner and Eric Dickerson. I think Eric Dickerson was there with Kurt Warner, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah. You can make an argument for some of those. I don't know. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry gives you such an explosive offense. And you saw that. First play of the game, 87-yard touchdown. Yeah. Third longest rushing touchdown of Derrick Henry's career, and it's the longest in Ravens history. Just unreal.
Yeah.
I don't know how a man that big can run that fast. It just doesn't make sense. And
yeah, and the fact that he hasn't aged, man. No, it is. We are watching something very special with Derrick Henry in specific. We are watching the best running back since Adrian Peterson. As far as longevity, dominance, year in and year out consistency, Derrick Henry is the best running back of our generation currently. And pairing him with a 2-time MVP quarterback that, is the fastest quarterback since Mike Vick,
The best dual threat quarterback of all time.
Yeah, dude, it is. This offense is spicy. And now that they're finally starting to get their shit together, and now that they're starting to, really play all three phases and they're starting to click, man, they are going to be scary moving forward. And Buffalo, who, 3-0 going into this game, looked completely out of sorts. Man, as soon as that Derrick Henry touchdown hit, man, they punched him in the mouth, and then they did not let their foot off the gas, which is something that I appreciate as a football watcher of, when they played us, they took the foot off the gas. That's why we were able to get back into the game. And instead, they were like, no, we're going to keep piling on points. We learned our lesson against Dallas. We're putting belt to ass, and we're going to keep putting belt to ass.
Yeah, that's the thing with Baltimore. Is I hate having to do this as a Steelers fan because I can't stand Baltimore.
Sure.
But Baltimore gets so disrespected constantly because of Lamar Jackson. People just have a vitriol reaction to Lamar Jackson. They just do not like him for whatever reason. I think just because he's not the traditional quarterback, and also maybe because he's not a white quarterback, but we don't have to get into that. Right.
Like it.
So the fact that he's just not a traditional pocket passer, people just hate the fact that he's not that, and they're like, oh, well, if you can't throw, then you might as well not be a quarterback. Lamar Jackson can't throw, and he's shown the ability that he can throw in the ball.
Yeah.
And again, people are going to discredit this and say, oh, well, the Bills actually kind of suck. They were a fraudulent 3-0, and oh, the Cowboys sucked, and they almost blew that game to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And people do this all the time. Those are two great teams that they just beat in a row, and they blew them out. Yeah, they let Dallas get back in it, but that's because they took their foot off the gas.
Yeah, and then they learned from their mistake and didn't.
And they did not take the foot off the gas in this game.
Yeah.
Because if you take the foot off the gas, then guess what? Quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Dak Prescott can make it a game, right?
Yeah.
So they learned for this one to not do that. But these are two impressive wins back to back, and it just showed that they had a slow start. Yeah, they went 0-2. They blew games they shouldn't have blown. And now their O-line is actually blocking the way it is. They're actually running the ball. They're not trying to sleepwalk. It felt like those first 2 weeks they were trying to sleepwalk their way into the playoffs. They're like, oh, we don't really have to try. We can just kind of make it there. But after these last 2 weeks, you're like, oh, no, this team is going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. Like, this is one of the Super Bowl favorites for sure.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, the Ravens have also had a gauntlet of a schedule thus far. I mean, playing the defending Super Bowl champions, playing Dallas at home, and then also having to play the Buffalo Bills, doing those 3 and 4 weeks. I don't know who they played week 2.
They played the Raiders. They lost to the Raiders.
Okay. So they've had one soft game, and then they've had 3 playoff contenders / 1 Super Bowl perennial champion, So it has been a hard schedule for the Ravens, and for them to be 2-2 at this point, and for them to look as dominant as they have the past 2 weeks, Ravens fans should feel very encouraged.
And they were like an inch away from taking that game to overtime against Kansas City in week 1.
Yeah, literally a big toe away.
Yeah, if that guy wore 10s instead of 12s, like,
yeah,
that's the difference in that game.
Yeah, 100%. So what is your final game to highlight before we start talking about Fiasco Awards?
I'll go over, I kind of want to talk a little bit about Miami's mismanagement. So let's go over one of the worst games of the week with Tennessee, Miami.
Do you want to pair this as your Fiasco Award of the week too?
Actually, you know what? Yeah, since we're doing that, I'll wait and I'll go over there, and then I'll talk about Detroit, Seattle, since that was a really good game last night.
Okay.
So
cool.
With Detroit, what we just mentioned with Baltimore, this also shows to me that Detroit is on a Super Bowl trajectory. This was my Super Bowl matchup preseason. I said it was going to be Detroit v. Buffalo. Jesus, Detroit v. Baltimore. So seeing both of these teams dominate the way they are, it's vindicating to me for a little bit, because that's what I said these teams had the capabilities of doing. But the Detroit offense, a lot of people are going to mention with Jared Goff having the first ever perfect game by a quarterback with minimum 15 completions. You know, he was 18 to 18 for 292 yards, two touchdowns, and then a receiving touchdown.
Oh yeah, the receiving touch, that was crazy. That was a great play call.
That play call was funny to watch in real time too, because it looked so slow. Like the way Jared Goff was running and the way the ball came out, you like saw the linebacker and you're like, oh, this is a pick. And he just didn't look for the ball and just went straight into Jared Goff's hands. Yeah. What a crazy play call. But regardless of how good the quarterback performances were from both Jared Goff and Geno Smith, what I thought was more impressive, which is both of these teams running games. David Montgomery with that 40-yard run, just shrugging off two defenders, pretty much brought to the ground and still making a huge play. I mean, David, this is what's so crazy is, can you imagine 2 years ago that
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Technically, it was receiving technically.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they tossed it out to him. Regardless, breaking off the defenders, making that type of run downfield. I mean, imagine 2 years ago that the most exciting running back matchup of the week is Kenneth Walker and David Montgomery. No one would believe you, but both of those guys ran their asses off. And even Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game too, and so does Zach Charbonnet. So, I mean, both of these teams have bona fide RB1s and their RB2 spots, and they can just run the ball down people's throats. And it's crazy too, because Seattle's O-line is abysmal. I mean, that's the main reason they lost this game, was because of how bad their O-line was. They just couldn't do anything against the trench play of Detroit. So these are both exciting teams. I don't think Seattle's a threat in the playoffs, but they're definitely a playoff team. I think they have some Seattle's defense is just really not good, and their O-line is terrible. So I think those are going to hold them back. But I don't know. Geno Smith could be a dark horse MVP candidate if he keeps playing the way he has. And I think this Detroit offense, I mean, it's even if their defense is giving up 29 points to a team like Seattle, I could still see just Detroit being able to outpace somebody and they can't catch up.
Yeah. No, I was going to mention that I'm still kind of on Detroit's defense, but to your point, that offense is just so high powered that it's like, well, yeah, if you're going to put up 42, it's kind of hard to beat you, And
absolutely,
they just have so many weapons on that team. They have the running back duo of Montgomery and Gibbs, and then you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you've got Sam Laporta. Even Jamison Williams had a really good day, 2 catches, 80 yards. He had that one long 70-yard touchdown. Yeah, just speed. And you just got to deal with all of these different guys. And, Jared Goff has proven that as long as you don't ask too much of him, which that is a theme with most quarterbacks in this league, as long as you don't ask too much of him, he's a great quarterback. If you are willing to give him the tools that he needs to succeed, he can more than succeed. And so, yeah, dude, this offense, they're just exciting. They're electric on all fronts of that offense. So, really,
they're scary.
They are scary for sure. And I do want to say real quick, damn it, I got, I've been trying to filter myself because I know that my church kids are listening to me. But fuck David Montgomery, because I lost in fantasy because of David Montgomery by 0.08 of a point. I had a 20-point cushion going into this game with 2 players still to play, one of which being Sam Laporta, and I still managed to lose because David Montgomery. So, yeah. David Montgomery, you had a great game, but I hope that you wake up with acorns in your engine tomorrow.
I have him in my other league, so I love you, David Montgomery. You're a beautiful boy.
The duality of man. Yeah. All right. Fiasco Awards of the week. Who do you have? Well, I know who you have.
Yeah, I spoiled it. I don't know if I want to. It's not to the entire Dolphins as a whole. It's more so just the Dolphins management and their roster construction for allowing this to happen.
You can give the awards to the GMs. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean it is like, because if the Dolphins just would have had a solid veteran backup, this team could still realistically make a playoff push. And I don't want to, talk shit on Tua while he's, obviously recovering from his concussion, going through a lot of scary shit, just in his own personal life right now. But Tua really isn't that much of an elevator. Tua is a pretty good football that has a pretty good quarterback with an amazing scheme around him. But I guarantee if you put a veteran QB in that spot, that they would still succeed. I doubt they would succeed to the level of Tua, but this roster could still put up points and still win because of the way Mike McDaniel has structured this offense and the way the scheme works. But when you have your backup quarterbacks as Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley, you automatically make it so you can't win games. And I don't know if the Dolphins are doing this because they don't want Tua to feel threatened for his job. And so they're putting in the worst quarterbacks they can find to ensure that he keeps his job. Because that's almost what it felt like the Jets did last year. They didn't want an actually good backup because they didn't want somebody to threaten Aaron Rodgers' job. At least that's my conspiracy theory, because why else would you start Zach Wilson that many weeks with how bad Zach Wilson is when there's other options available? That almost feels the exact same way Miami's handling this. Ryan Tannehill is on the couch right now. Ryan Tannehill can play better football than the two guys you got here. You had an opportunity to go get Mason Rudolph in this offseason, who just fucking blew you guys out of the water on the other team. And I doubt that Tennessee really prioritized their backup quarterback spot because they wanted to ride the season out with Will Levis. So why not bring someone like that in there? I mean, they could have had Tyrod Taylor. They could have had Jacoby Brissett before he signed with the Patriots. They could have had, Joe Flacco was available before he went to the Colts. There are so many quarterbacks that were available to them, and there's still quarterbacks available right now that I say if you put them in there, this Miami team could win some games. But they're refusing to do it, and it almost doesn't feel like it's because they believe in their guys, but rather they don't want Tua to feel threatened for his job. And I know that's putting words in people's mouths, but that's what it looks like when you're committing this amount of management, just catastrophe.
Yeah. No, yeah, being completely negligent on through the front office side. And, to your point, they need to be honest with themselves. Tua is one concussion away from being a vegetable. That is harsh language, but it's true. That brother needs to retire. I've already been on that rant before on this pod, but he needs to retire. He needs to be done if he wants to ever, hold his kids and, be able to enjoy life and, again, not be a vegetable, have brains of mush, or turn into an Aaron Hernandez type of situation. He needs to be done. And so at this point, I'm curious if their front office kind of knows that, and if instead of it being, hey, we're threatened by Tua's job, they're more so looking at it like, yes, we could put in a makeshift quarterback and win some games, possibly finish the season, like 9-8 or something like that, maybe 10-7, maybe slide into the playoffs, however that looks, or we could tank, get a top 5 pick and get a quarterback. And
go 3-14 and draft Carson Beck or something. Exactly.
So that's more what I think that they're probably trying to do.
That makes sense.
So,
all right, what about yours?
Ooh, I have the New York Jets, specifically the New York Jets offense. They are getting my Fiasco Award of the week because how you lose to the Denver Broncos when their starting quarterback throws for 60 yards. That's not a typo, everyone listening. 60 yards. 12 of 25 for 60 yards. How you lose to that team is insane to me. Doesn't make sense. Breece Hall was absolutely atrocious. Couldn't find a hole if he were on a porn set. That is, ooh, that's a bar. But yeah, Breece Hall, 10 carries, 4 yards. Again, not a typo. And his longest was 3 yards. Aaron Rodgers rushed significantly better than he did. And yeah, I gave them so much praise last week because I was like, hey, they're finally starting to click. Look at their ceiling. And then they said, you thought you were looking at our ceiling. You want to see the floor? And then we saw the floor. So, yeah, they just looked piss poor on offense. Couldn't get anything going. There were some receiving yards had, but between sacks, penalties, and other untimely things, ended up losing a game 10-9 to a team whose starting quarterback threw for 60 yards.
The worst part about that is Bo Nix had -7 passing yards at the half. What?
Yeah.
I don't know about Bo Nix, man. We'll see.
Yeah, he's not looking nearly as good as I thought he would, because I was very high on him going into the season. And don't get me wrong, their receiving core still not particularly great. Cortland Sutton, in my opinion, still isn't a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 2 that just has a wide receiver 1 job. But, maybe you give Bo Nix some more weapons that might be helpful. But, I mean, their offensive line did fine. There was not a single sack given up for Denver. So that tells me that their offensive line was doing their damn job. And how you only walk away with 60 yards, man, it's just I also wonder, though, on the coaching side of things, because, we've talked about what's his face used to be the New Orleans coach. Now he's in Denver. What's his name?
Sean Payton. Sean
Payton. Thank you. We've also kind of trashed Sean Payton on this pod a little bit about he may not really be that good of a coach. He just benefited from having a top 5, top 10 all-time quarterback and Drew Brees. And we might be seeing that firsthand right now too, because I saw Bo Nix at Oregon. You give Bo Nix some weapons and a good offensive game plan, and he can sling that thing, and here we are, and they scored 10 points, which is probably like their season average, because they have not been putting up points whatsoever. And yeah, Bo Nix goes for 60 yards. So, yeah.
It is concerning with Bo Nix, too, just because of how old he is. I mean... Isn't
he like 25?
Yeah, he's a... Let me see right now.
Maybe he was like a super senior.
Yeah. I mean, he was in college forever. He was born February 25 of 2000. So, yeah, he would be 24.
Oh, okay, he's a little younger than we thought.
Yeah, a little bit younger than we thought. Still, I don't know, man. If you're that old coming out of college, like, I feel like you should have more poise. Mm-hmm. It's alarming that he had 6 or 7 years in college or whatever it was, and he doesn't have the poise that you would expect from a first-round QB who spent that much time in college.
Yeah.
I will also trash on Deshaun Watson here for a second. There is only 2 quarterbacks who have a average completion yard lower than he does currently, and that's Bo Nix and Bryce Young.
Oh shit!
That's how bad Deshaun Watson's been.
Well, hey, we're always cool with Deshaun Watson slander on this pod. So,
yep.
Cool. Then moving forward to our pick'ems, I'm going to switch over real quick to what next week looks like. Week 5, and you're still on Yahoo, right?
Yep, I am. Yep.
Okay. Well, if I can ever get my browser to load. Here we go. All right, starting with Tampa Bay, Atlanta. Who do you have?
This is close for me. I think I'm going to go Atlanta just because it's in Atlanta, and that's really the only reason. I think the Buccaneers have been playing pretty good. Baker's been doing great. I think if this was in Tampa Bay, I'd probably give it to the Bucs, but since it's in Atlanta, I'll go Falcons and trust that Kirk Cousins is going to have a good game.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's been playing some better football as of late. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think with it being at home, I'll probably go Atlanta. New York Jets, not Giants. New York Jets versus the Minnesota Vikings.
And there's no reason for me to pick against Minnesota until they lose.
Yep. diehard Darnold. That's what we are on this pod these days. I didn't ever think that my podcasting career would get to that, but Darnold we trust. All right, the 1-3 Carolina Panthers versus the 2-2 Chicago Bears. I think I'm going Chicago on this one because it's in Chicago.
Yeah, I will as well. I think the Bengals are pretty bad. So if Carolina didn't beat the Bengals, I don't really see them beating the Bears. And it's kind of crazy because preseason, I would never expect the Bears and the Bengals to be in a similar spot in my head. But I think those teams are about in the same area in terms of how much they compete. Obviously, the Bengals have a much higher power offense, but shit, this Bears defense is way better than the Bengals defense. So, and I think Andy Dalton's just going to struggle against the Bears defense. And as long as the Bears play mistake-free football, they should be fine.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that, I have Chicago's defense in multiple leagues now because I had Dallas, and then after a couple of disappointing games, I switched over to Chicago. But Chicago has been getting me some points on defense, so I will take that. And I think even more so, I think that maybe we can finally get the Caleb Williams breakout game. I've been waiting on it. Because it's there. You can see it occasionally where there are moments like, dude, if you could just get it to work. So hoping that since Carolina is just so abysmally bad that Caleb Williams can get some confidence in this game and have himself a day. So the 2-2 Baltimore Ravens versus the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals. I think we both know what's going to happen here, even with it being in Cincinnati.
Yeah, division games always get weird. There's always a chance. This Baltimore team is just way better than the Cincinnati team.
Light years ahead. And that Bengals defense is not going to do shit against Baltimore.
They really struggle against the run.
Yeah.
Like, that's their weakest spot is the run defense. And
you're talking about
going to have a real good game.
Yeah, you're talking about the best rushing team in the NFL. So
no.
I would be very shocked, let's just say, if Cincinnati pulled the W. The 1-3 Miami Dolphins versus the 1-3 New England Patriots in New England, of course. This will be one of our, what did you call those, shit bowls or whatever?
Yeah, toilet bowl.
Yeah, toilet bowls. I'm going to say the Pats just by default.
Yeah, if the Dolphins sign somebody before the game to play quarterback, I'll go with the Dolphins. But until they do that, then I think the Patriots. I think they're right now with the quarterback play. Yeah, the offensive talent in New England is terrible, but I trust Jacoby more, so I just imagine he's going to make it work. Whereas I don't think they can make it work in Miami with the QB situation they have.
Fair enough. 3-1 Cleveland 1-3 Cleveland versus the 3-1 Washington Commies, and it's in Washington. This is going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I think it is too. The Cleveland defense hasn't played well this year, and Jaden Daniels has looked phenomenal. So
yeah, gosh, man, it's so hard to see it as a Cowboys fan because yeah, Jaden Daniels he looks good.
Dude, Cliff Kingsbury is a good OC. You know, he might have been a terrible coach, but he's a great OC so far. And I am surprised how well. I thought Jaden Daniels was too small. I just thought he was too skinny to play QB. And I guess that don't matter because he can read the field and he can make plays with his arms and he can still shrug off hits even being that small. So
I was about to say he's also very tough too, because I've seen him take some hits and he gets up slow and then he kind of just shakes it off. He's like, all right, time for the next throw. So yeah, I expect that one to get ugly pretty quickly. The 2-2 Indianapolis Colts versus the 0-4 Jacksonville Jaguars.
This is weird. I don't know who's playing QB for the Colts. If it's Flacco, I lean Colts. But if Anthony Richardson's going to play, I feel like the Jags just have to get one here soon. And a division game against a team that's banged up, that might be the game they get. So I'm going to give a little asterisk. I'm going to go on whoever's playing QB. is who I'll pick.
I don't even think that the QB matters in this one. I just think that this is going to be one of those law of average games where Jacksonville is just going to have to win one. And with it being in Jacksonville, I think that they're going to get a dub. It's going to be an ugly game. It's going to be a close game. But yeah, I just think law of averages states that they're probably not going to start off 0-5.
Yeah, fair enough.
Then we have, this will be a good game. The 3-1 Buffalo Bills versus the 3-1 Houston Texans. Good old Stephon Diggs is going to get to play against his former team. I think he's going to have a huge game.
I don't know. I think Baltimore is just that much better than a lot of these AFC contenders that I still feel good taking Buffalo here.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't really know why. I think it's just a vibes thing, but
hey, vibes is more important than stats. I will die on that hill.
Hell yeah, brother.
But aura does not count. Aura does not win you games. Vibes do. Yeah. I'm going to go with Houston on this one, especially since it's in Houston. I think Stephon Diggs is going to have a big game. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a shootout. I could see a 35-31 type of game out of this one.
Definitely.
All right, the 2-2 Las Vegas Raiders versus the 2-2 Denver Broncos. How are both of these teams 2-2?
I have no clue, man.
That is wild to me. God, I don't even know who to choose just because this game's going to be ugly.
Strangely enough, I think the Broncos are better.
I think so too, and it's going to be in Denver. Yeah. Man, it's going to be crazy that Denver's going to walk out of this game
with a winning record. Well, let's ride.
Oh man! All right, the 1-3 Arizona Cardinals versus the 2-2 San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
It's going to be San Fran, especially because it's in San Fran. All right, the 2-2 Green Bay. We don't even need to discuss the 2-2 Green Bay Packers versus the 1-3 Los Angeles Rams.
I'm going to take the Packers, even though it seems like a sneaky upset in my head. Mm-hmm. I could see LA winning this one, but Green Bay is just a better team, so I feel like it would be disingenuous to pick against Green Bay here.
I'm going to go with the Rams on this one. I think that we're going to finally see Malik Willis look a little bit human.
Well, Jordan Love's going to be playing.
Oh, then I'm definitely taking the Rams. Let's go. What is that? The 1-3 New York Giants versus the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks in Seattle with no disrespect to actually full disrespect to A&M. The real 12th man is in Seattle. I'm taking Seattle on this one.
100%. I'm with you.
And I think that they're going to give New York the treatment that Dallas should have given New York but didn't. That takes us to the 2-2 Dallas Cowboys versus the 3-1 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Our teams.
Ooh. What do you think?
I want you to go first.
Screw you. It's in Pittsburgh, and I don't have faith in this defense, and I don't have faith in Mike McCarthy as a coach. I think Pittsburgh's going to win, and I think y'all are going to do it handily, and that bothers me to no end to say that. I think y'all win by 10.
This is going to be weird. Vibes. I feel like Pittsburgh loses this one. Even though it's at home, and even though Pittsburgh's playing better, I just feel like we play Dallas pretty poorly, unless it's in the Super Bowl, and then we play each other pretty evenly. So I don't know. I feel like Dallas is going to have a bounce back game. I like that you guys beat the Giants, because if you guys would have lost, you definitely would have won. So I think it makes it closer. I don't know. Pittsburgh's got this commanding lead in the division right now, and I think Baltimore's just a better team. So I feel like law of averages is going to have us have Baltimore win, and make things spicy in the AFC North.
Fair enough. God, we're terrible fans.
I know, right? We're both picking against our own teams.
Yeah. Oh, man. What a weird time. All right, and then the last game on the docket for Monday Night Football is the 2-2 New Orleans Saints versus the 4-0 Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just going to speak on behalf of both of us. We're not going to pick against Patty, even with how banged up their team is.
Well, I'm going to be different.
Oh,
I think with Rashee Rice out, I think this is where they lose their first game. New Orleans has had coming down to earth. I think they really need a bounce back win. Mm-hmm. And I trust in Patrick Mahomes, and I know he's going to throw it to, freaking like bodega owners and whoever he needs to make things happen.
Xavier Worthy's still healthy.
He is, but it's just Worthy and it's just Kelsey. I think they're going to drop one, and it's going to suck when they drop one because they're going to trade for a pretty good receiver from a pretty good team, and things like I guarantee what's going to happen here is they're going to lose this game to the Saints, and then they're going to get Amari Cooper from the Browns.
Yeah, I could see that world.
So,
I could see that world.
I'm gonna bite my words because they're definitely going to win, but I feel like this is the 1 week it's reasonable to pick against the Chiefs, so I'm going to do it, and just hope that corrects the universe since I haven't picked against the Chiefs in like years at this point.
Fair enough. Well, cool. Any last comments before we end the show, Tanner?
I don't think so. I think we got through everything we needed to.
Hell yeah, in a little bit under an hour. So thanks everybody so much for listening. Again, we appreciate your time. As always, rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Pods. It's the best way for us to grow the show. And again, check out our sponsor, BetStamp. You can go to signupexpert.com/fiasco for all the portfolio stuff that BetStamp has to offer. There are all kinds of deals going on, especially since the NFL season is still kind of new, at least. And but yeah, with that, we appreciate y'all's time, and we will see you next week.
Hugs and kisses.
Hugs and kisses.
Well, I like school, and I like football, and I'm gonna keep doing them both because they make me feel good.